Today's video is just a short lesson with some examples using the methods that we've learned to make equations in slope-intercept form. We've talked about graphing, being able to take information and use a graph to visually see the things we need to make an equation in our slope-intercept form. And we recently started talking about how we can use something called the algebra method, where we don't use a graph, but we just use the numbers that are given to us and find the information like the slope and y-intercept with what they've given, and we can make an equation that way. So I've got two problems here. I'm going to start off with this first one, number one, write an equation of a line. And again, right now when we write an equation of a line, the best way we know how to make one is in slope-intercept form. If it asks for some other form in the future, then we'll try to use that. But right now, y equals mx plus b is the best way we know how. And again, here are the things that we're looking for, m and b. If we find those things, we can make our equation. So it says write an equation of a line that has a slope of negative 2/3 and goes through the point 6, negative 1. Okay, and we've got a graph here that we can use in this case, so that's the way we'll figure out this particular problem to write our equation. Well, of the two things that we need, the slope and the y-intercept, right away we've got the slope here over in the problem, negative 2/3. So negative 2/3 is the slope of our line. Good, they've given us that one, we're done with that. Now we just got to figure out the y-intercept, and we're going to use the graph to do that. We've got this point 6, negative 1, so I'm going to go over to that on my grid here and plot where 6, negative 1 would be. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then down 1. So here's 6, negative 1. And the slope was negative 2/3, which means down 2 and right 3. And I'm going to start running out of room, so now I got to backtrack a little bit and go up to left 3. And up to left 3. And it looks like already I've landed on my y-intercept. I could make some more points just to make sure I've got a nice accurate line. But I'm just going to stop there and draw my line. You should draw with a ruler, of course. But that's enough for me to find out what my y-intercept is, which is right here, which looks to be the point 0, 3. So I'm going to list that as my point. Here's my y-intercept, 0, positive 3. So now I've got the y-intercept. And then just a reminder to everybody, here's then the final answer to the question. Sometimes we like to stop after just figuring that out, those two things, but you still have to write the actual equation. Here is the answer, y equals negative 2/3 x plus 3. All right, so moving on to the problem down below. Now this problem, like we talked about at the very top here, we just used graphing to do that first problem. And now we're going to look at the algebra method. How do we find the things we need without using a graph, given the information that they have for us in the problem? So the second problem says write an equation of a line that passes through the points negative 3, negative 10, and negative 7, 2. So all I have is 2 points. I don't have my slope or my y-intercept. But we have learned in this class that one way I can figure out my slope if they give me 2 points is I'm just going to make a little XY table. And whether they give me 2 points or even more than 2 points, as long as I set something up like this, I can figure out the slope of that line. I put those 2 points in a table, and then I find how much they increase or decrease by on each of the sides. So on the y coordinates, I see that it goes from negative 10 to positive 2, which is an increase of 12 in this case. And then on the other side, negative 3 down to negative 7 is going down 4. And these two numbers make up my slope, which is 12 over negative 4. Remember, it's always the rise, the y direction, which is up and down, on top of the run, which is the x direction, the left to right. So it'd be 12 over negative 4, which is negative 3 for the slope. So in this case, I've found my slope now. That is negative 3. Check mark. I've got that one done. And now here's the part, again, that maybe if we get fooled, this is the part, the kind of newer thing for our algebra method. I'm not going to use a graph, but I am going to use, and I'm just going to take some space over here and write our equation again. Y equals mx plus b. Realize what we just did. We found out what m is. And then I'm trying to find out what b is. That's the unknown that I do not know yet for this line because I don't have a graph or something to look at. But I can use one of these points. It doesn't matter which one, since I've got 2 points. They're both on the line, so I can use either one and realize this is an x and a y coordinate. So I can put these numbers in for x and y. So I do have x and I do have y. And if I put those numbers in, it'll start looking like this. Negative 10 equals, the slope I found was negative 3. And then in this case, the x-coordinate is also negative 3 for this problem, plus b. So I plug in all the things that I know, and then there's my last unknown, which is b. Now I just start solving this equation for b. Negative 3 times negative 3 gives me positive 9, plus b equals negative 10. I'd subtract the 9 over to the other side, and b equals negative 19. So my y-intercept should be negative 19. So now I've got both the things that I need. I can make my equation. Y equals negative 3x minus 19. I want to go back just one more second to this part of the problem, though, where we did the algebra method, and just actually show it to you one more time, but just show you that, again, like we mentioned, both these points are on the line, so it doesn't matter which one we use. So what if you or your friend or your person you're working with used the other point, negative 7, 2? Would it still work the same? Well, yes, it still should. You still have the slope that we found earlier, and now you still have the negative 7, which is the x-coordinate, and 2, which is the y-coordinate, and you're still trying to find b, but just showing that it would still work and give us the same answer. So the y-coordinate is 2. We found out that the slope, again, was negative 3. We have negative 7 as the x-coordinate, and again, it's still plus b. So again, this is just showing that it's going to work. If I multiply these two together, I get 21. So 2 equals 21 plus b. Subtract 21 from both sides. And yep, 2 minus 21 still equals negative 19. So what do you know? Just showing that it does work. Doesn't matter which point you would use. Either way, we should be able to get to the correct equation. All right, one more problem we'll do in this lesson is actually a word problem. We're going to find out that when we're doing these types of word problems that set up with like slope-intercept form or just as linear relationships, often a lot of the things that we're trying to do in this problem is like finding the slope of the line, finding the rate of change, how much something's increasing. And then B, like when we try to find out what the kind of like our y-intercept is when we do our algebra method, well, that's like finding the starting point or where something began. So let's take a look at this problem here as an example, and I'll show you what I mean. Number 3, it says you've been saving up for a while for a new phone. You have been putting money into your bank account every week. And you find out that after 8 weeks, or you realize after 8 weeks of saving money, your bank statement says that you have $585. And then after 12 weeks of saving, your statement says you have $765. So using that information, you can figure out how much are you putting in the bank each week, and then how much did you originally have in the account before you started saving. So just how much did you start with, okay? Now, what you want to realize here is you do more of these problems, you start to realize kind of the information that we have here, okay? Realize that we kind of have some things we call ordered pairs, numbers that go together. After 8 weeks of saving, the bank statement says you have $585. I'm going to put them in a table, or you could put them in even ordered pairs. Let me just start there, actually, just to show, like, okay, after 8 weeks of saving, we have $585. Like, that's what we figured out. See how those numbers kind of go together, though? It's like an x and a y coordinate for us, okay? And then looking at the second line there, after 12 weeks of saving, you got $765, okay? Those are saying after certain points in time. It's not telling us how much we're putting in. It's not answering the first question. It's not saying how much we originally had, but it is telling us after certain points in time, after so many weeks, here's how much we got. So realize that that information for us is like these. It's like the ordered pairs that we're going to work with. Well, we can use those then to, like we did on the previous page. And again, this is a problem you could graph, but I'm going to suggest I'm using the algebra method because it'll be a little easier than having to go up 585 or 765 on a graph. So I'm going to use those numbers and put them in a table like we do. 8 and 585 and 12 and 765. So then, just like when we find our slope, what we're really figuring out is, okay, how much money did we put in the bank over the course of those weeks that went by, okay? 4 weeks went by, right, from weeks 8 to 12. I'm going to start with this one in this case. 4 weeks went by, and over a span of those 4 weeks, what you find if you do a little math here is that you added $180 to your account. So your account went up $180. Oh gosh, I gotta erase that. $180 in 4 weeks. Okay, so that's how much it went up. So then you're trying to figure out how much you put in each just 1 week on average. How much are you putting in? Well, that's again almost like finding the slope. You put in $185 over the course of 4 weeks. If I divide those out, I'll figure out how much I'm putting in just per every 1 week, and you find out that it ends up being $45 per 1 week. So that, and again, of the things that we try to find, you could call it like your slope. That's like our rate of change, how much it's increasing by. What is it going up by every week? Well, we're putting in $45 in this case. That's how much, that's answering the first question. Then, to work backwards and figure out, well, how much do we have in originally? If we're putting in 45 bucks every week, how much money are we putting in every single time? Well, again, it's kind of like we did in the other problem. We're taking one of our ordered pairs, and let's, in this case, let's take this one right here, okay? So it's saying for 8 weeks, and what we know now is for 8 weeks, you put in $45. So what we end up doing is multiplying 8 and 45 to figure out how much money you put in over those 8 weeks. And that'll tell you then how much you put in, and you subtract that from the 585. Now I just want to show you how it's similar to still the things we've been doing with our slope-intercept form equation though, okay? We just found out what the slope is, m, how much we're putting in every week. And then again, we have an ordered pair, 8 weeks and $585. So just plug in those things in where they go, just to show you that it sets up just like we would think mentally of what we would probably do in this problem. Like we said earlier, to figure out how much we've saved over those first 8 weeks, we put in $45 for 8 weeks in a row, so I multiply them together. What do you know? If I do that, I think I get, 360 plus B equals 585. And then, so here's how much we saved over the 8 weeks. So we got to subtract that from what the bank statement we said we had after 8 weeks. And when we do that, we get $225. So that must be how much we started with in the account. So we're saving $45 every week. But we started with $225. If they wanted some equation in the end, this problem just pretty much asked us to answer these questions. But if they wanted an equation in that would model how much we would have after so many weeks in the future too, we would just make that equation. Y equals 45x plus 225. How much we started with, how much we're putting in based on what they told us.